I think as we're now looking, though, at the castle in reflection, it's time to talk about the castle. So, have we heard of King John? Do we know about King John? My kind of name. We've only had one King John, so there shouldn't be kind of too many. And famously, he's kind of Robin Hood, isn't he? He's the brother running me all that exactly right. We're on the right page. So Newark Castle was founded in the mid-12th century, and the charter kind of generally dates that to 1135. Thank you, Christine. Bang on with the dates. To Henry I's reign. So the Bishop of Lincoln grants the permission to build a castle. And he also builds a mint here as well. So initially the castle would have been of timber and then rebuilt in stone towards the end of the 12th century, the 1190s, just around the time King John came to the throne. Now, King John died here after a feast at this castle on the night of the 18th of October in 1216. And it's some 800 years since one of England's most reviled monarchs, King John, died. And those that have been on my other tours, you've been to Knaresborough, you'll have heard about King John. He loved to hunt in Knaresborough Forest, didn't he? Remember that? But to his contemporaries, his obsession with kind of leisure pursuits at the expense of royal duties was just a minor irritation. It was one amongst many. In fact, many viewed him as a complete jerk. King John was the youngest son of King Henry II of England and Eleanor of Aquitaine. And he was born on the 24th of December, 1166, so 100 years after the conquest, making him the seventh king to rule Britain in that 100 years, since 1066. Now, he was the youngest of 5 brothers, so actually at birth, it seemed very unlikely that he was going to make it to the throne. However, 3 of his older brothers died young of illness and injury, and so immediately he becomes the second in line to the throne after his brother, King Richard the Lionheart. So we're going to cross over this bridge. We'll lose. So although John organised a kind of failed rebellion against his older brother, he's nonetheless crowned king after Richard was killed attempting to recapture Normandy. Thank you. So he was loathed by his contemporaries as cruel and cowardly. Now, many people kind of think of medieval Europe as a bit like the Game of Thrones. Like anything goes, you can do what you like. But no, there was rules, particularly when it came to how you treated nobles. And King John broke these taboos. He didn't just kill, he was sadistic. He starved people to death. And not just enemy knights, but once a rival's wife and son. He managed to loot swathes of inherited territory in France, and then pushed up taxes to fund vain attempts to get them back, and in doing so alienated his subjects in England. He had a reputation for being a sexual predator with the wives and daughters of the nobles, along with the kind of arbitrary treatment of both allies and rivals. And he's angered the elite. Yes, he spent most of his time in England, Susan. That's an interesting question. Compared to Richard, who spent about 3 months of his reign in England, King John was here most of the time. He kind of annoyed Pope Innocent III so much, the pontiff excommunicated him, and he ordered that England's churches were closed. He was forced to sign the famous Magna Carta document, passing over the rights and powers to the English barons, which is kind of often seen as the first sort of official recognition of the quasi-democracy by a modern king. And the peace of the Magna Carta, though, didn't hold. And John was soon again at war with the barons, who offered the throne to a French prince, Louis. But while fighting, John became weak and sick. He'd been on a march fighting a war under a lot of strain. He was probably physically and emotionally exhausted. And of course, the living conditions on a march can be primitive, no matter who you are. It's tough, right? So he's travelling from Norfolk towards the Midlands, and he halted here at Newark, where a storm was raging. He crossed the River Trent, and in doing so in the flood, he managed to lose the crown jewels. He was not having a good time. So he took refuge here in Newark Castle. Do go by, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. And he soon died. His chaotic and disastrous reign came to a heaving end on or near the toilet, or whatever serves as toilet in Newark Castle in 1216. Never been found, absolutely, Alison, yeah. So the rumours put his demise down to eating unripe peaches, drinking too much sweet ale, or even being dosed with poison from a toad. By finishing John, dysentery, which is essentially diarrhoea, so violent it causes bleeding and death, may spectacularly change the course of English history. The chronicler Matthew Paris wrote, "Foul as it is, hell itself is made fouler by the presence of John." His epitaph reflects the contempt with which John was widely held, but it could also be a nod to his unpleasant demise. To say John died of overindulgence was a way of criticising his personality. It implies intemperance, gluttony, and imprudence. To say he was poisoned showed he was hated, and whatever the truth, those writing down the history had nothing good to say about John. And so, when John died here in the castle in October 1216, few mourned or even turned out to see his body being carried away to Worcester Cathedral, where he's buried. And after John's death, the kind of fire went out of the Civil War. We're going to see the inside of the castle a little bit later on, by the way. And Prince Louis was chased from England. Stability returned, and the Magna Carta took root. And the argument over the absolute power of kings had been settled, or so it seemed at the time. But this issue was to erupt again with deadly consequences some 4 centuries later, and once again Newark Castle was at the heart of the action.